All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your day to view this presentation. My name is Brian Verboort, and I'm a solutions engineer here at M2 Technologies. I'll be leading you through the topic for today, which is the integration of AutoCAD with Vault Professional in preparation for connection to PLM. Some acronyms there that we'll try to touch on and try to demystify a little bit if you're uncertain of what they are. This was going to be specific to the AutoCAD product and the way to integrate. There are obviously integrations with other Autodesk products and even competitive products into the PLM environment. That's the beauty of PLM, is the ability to manage data from many different sources. It's CAD agnostic. And we'll get into some of those topics. We'll touch briefly on a few of those things. For the most part, I'll be showing you AutoCAD and the steps required to prepare for getting the data from AutoCAD into a PLM environment. Those of you that have been using AutoCAD for a while probably already aware of the fact that there's not a great deal of metadata that goes along with our CAD files in the AutoCAD environment, and Vault Professional can help get you over that hurdle. PLM is all about information, and where there is a lack of information, PLM lacks effectivity, or effectiveness, I should say. So I'll do a quick run through on a presentation here just to familiarize you with who we are here at M2. Just unpause my screen. And advance my slides. So we here at M2 Technology, we've been around for a while. We are a technology consulting firm, and we've got offices all over the US and a couple overseas. We've been in business for roughly 24 years or so, and we are a Microdesk partner. So what that means is that M2 Technologies is focused on the manufacturing industry, and Microdesk focuses more on civil and architectural industries. And so together with the marriage between the two companies, that gives us an effective way to provide you, our customers, with expertise in your industry, regardless of what that industry might be. What we do is provide you, our customers, essentially with whatever's required to be successful in business, whether that be folding in technology or business process issues that you might be trying to address. That's our goal, is to provide you with the resources you might need to help overcome some of those issues, and to help lead you also in the case you're thinking about introducing and implementing new technology. The discussion that goes along with that. It's a big world out there, and there's a lot of options, and try to help thin the herd a little bit and narrow things down for you when it comes to selecting solutions for different types of applications. So as our relationship with Microdesk might communicate, we are also heavily involved in the manufacturing side, specifically for the building information modeling on the architectural side of the business. So there's lines start to blur between industries when we start talking about these tools that are available to us, and even the industries themselves, as the architectural side of the business or industry starts to move more towards actually providing built off-site and installed types of structures. That becomes more of almost a traditional manufacturing method at that point. We are a gold partner. When we team up, where we don't have internal or in-house expertise, we team up with others. So the ability to provide you with a single source for the services you might require, certainly a goal as well. And not everyone can be amazing at everything, so we recognize that, and we team up, we pair up with the industry leading partners. There's actually a partner we pair up with that I don't see listed here, and that's our good friends over at Cool Orange. They're a technology partner that provides automation for your vault environment, typically. Services we deliver, kind of spoken to already. CAD management, software development, design automation, simulation. Essentially, if you look at these items that are on this list, you can see that we have many varied, deep and wide services that are provided in our organization to help provide you with the needs that you might be trying to meet. Generative design is a kind of emerging technology. You may or may not be familiar with it. Incredible stuff. It serves an absolute role in the design process. It is not a design tool in itself. It is not a CAD modeling tool. What it does is it helps augment the existing workflow that you might have so that you can be more sustainable in an ever-changing world. Our quick agenda here, I'll be going through some of the system requirements for Vault. A little bit boring, but we'll slide through that as quickly as possible. And then I'll get into the meat of our presentation here, the connecting AutoCAD to Vault, which then in turn gives us the information we need to connect to PLM. We'll go through a brief PLM primer here as well. We have a presentation that has been accomplished and delivered by one of my partners, one of my colleagues here. And so if you're interested in knowing more about PLM than what this presentation shows you, I'd recommend that you take a look at the list of recordings for the PLM, more of a PLM focused presentation. We'll then touch on a bit of Q&A, any questions you guys might have. If you do have questions during the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and just put those in the chat, and we'll get through those as quickly as we can near the end of the presentation. All right, so let's take a look at the system requirements for Vault Professional. It's pretty easy to find this information. We can provide a link in the chat as well for the detail that's here. I just wanted to touch base on some of the system requirements, so that maybe explain a few things that aren't maybe always clear, or a few things that have changed over the years. So this is the Autodesk, the page that presents the system requirements for Professional, and just wanted to present that information here. So different categories for system requirements. The server itself that hosts the Vault console is an important piece, and you can see here that the latest version, the 2022 version, has been modernized to work with more recent versions of SQL database. Microsoft SQL is a requirement for the Vault environment on the server side. So I won't read those specifications, but essentially Windows Server 2016 or 2019 as far as an OS, and then can be standard or data center flavors of that version. And if you wanted to just do something very lightweight test environment, you can even install a free version of SQL that would then support a very small Vault Basic environment that you could do some testing and playing around just to get your feet wet with Vault. If you're in that situation, we recommend that you just reach out to us and let us know what you're up to. We can help answer a lot of the questions you might have and kind of help lead you through the process of learning more to see if Vault might be something that that meets your needs. There is multiple versions of the Vault. We're working with Vault Professional today. There is a Vault Workgroup and a Vault Basic. They all have different capabilities built on top of each other, and so I won't go into too much detail with that, but those are the things that we can help you kind of figure out which version of Vault might be the right one for you. We're talking about database servers. We're talking about the SQL side of things, and so that's you can run express versions of SQL as long as the database size doesn't grow after about beyond 10 gigabytes or so. So again, more of a spinning up new to Vault environment. When you start to get into more of the commercial side of things, then certainly when you're adopting a technology like Vault, there will be a growth in those databases and in server spaces required disk space. So we need to plan for growth in those areas, but you can start out with a moderate, very affordable environment to get things going. Standard specifications here, the 8 gigs of RAM is very light, I would say. 16 is definitely the way to go, which is why it's recommended, and even more if you're going to run in larger environments that have multiple sites. Vault Professional has the ability to be a multi-site environment, so we can replicate data between multiple sites, whether they be, across the state or across the planet. So when we start doing things like that, then it's certainly recommended that we beef those system requirements up a bit, so that you're not dealing with quite so much delay between sites, and of course the transactions and latency between sites, so you don't want to make that even worse by having low performing systems, server systems at each end. There is the notion of replication, which could be either a replication for just the file servers or for the entire file server or the files as well as the database. So depending on latency, drop packets, those types of indicators, we would help you make a decision as to which is the best if you want to do some replication. If a file store replication is good enough for what you're trying to accomplish, or if you want a full replication with the database SQL environment as well. Just let us know what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll help you make those decisions for you to have the best performance. There is the need for a client side. So we talk about doing work from the client's perspective. You do need to, again, have fairly modern, modernized-ish requirements for those workstations on the client side. Typically, a CAD software is pretty demanding. So mostly, we find that most systems are pretty good. If they're running CAD, they're probably pretty good and good enough for running the Vault client and the connectivity for the Vault environment. The requirement for Internet Explorer 11, it's not necessarily hard and fast. The problem is you get into things on the fringes of support, where if you start to have an issue with Vault and Firefox, that sometimes it's difficult to get support from those vendors. So Autodesk supports this environment, Internet Explorer 11. I've seen a lot of people be successful running it outside of this environment, but it's not necessarily recommended. Again, the CAD requirements for your CAD software are probably enough, as long as it's fairly modern. There's also a notion of a lightweight client. It's based upon a browser, hence the requirement for IE. But that browser actually allows you to provide access outside of engineering to get access to some of the CAD work that you might be doing, which is probably why you're on this call today, to try to determine how we can connect to PLM, which is typically used for distributing information across an organization, not just the engineering design team. We've got Vault for the engineering design team, and it does what most engineering design teams need and want it to do. But to democratize and distribute that information in a safe and controlled way outside to other people in the organization, or even to customers and vendors, that's kind of where PLM comes into play. So with that, hopefully brief enough rundown on system requirements. If you've got questions about those things, you can reach out, you can type them in the chat, and I can provide a little more color, a little more detail as needed in that case. Okay, so I'm going to get into the the live hands-on presentation portion here. So give me a chance to turn a few things on and off and switch screens and applications. All right, I'm going to be using AutoCAD 2022 for the purpose of this this demonstration. I'll be configuring and showing and speaking about best practices with regards to AutoCAD connecting to Vault Professional. So hopefully everyone can see my AutoCAD welcome or home screen. This is where we're going to be starting today. And one of the things that's kind of primary with the AutoCAD environment is we've got to have some sort of a container for some of the details that that we want to communicate, that are important to communicate into a PLM environment, into Vault, and then subsequently into PLM as well. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of run through that that process, that procedure. So I'll go ahead and open up just an existing AutoCAD document. Fairly simple. I wanted to focus on the process more than anything else here. I won't be doing any design work in this AutoCAD session today. So for those of you that tuned in hoping to see me design something, sorry for that. The drawing that I have here in front of me is just a simple shaft. Really what we're interested in is focusing in on the information, the details that go along with this design. So the type of things that maybe an external vendor or even an internal vendor, as well as somebody that might be implementing the products that you design, these are the things that are important. So those tend to be the types of information that we might put in a title block, whether that title block is just a simple series of lines that are drawn with no real intelligence associated with them, or maybe you've even got some intelligent information, at least as close as we can get to intelligent information in AutoCAD with the use of attributed blocks. So in a lot of organizations, the attributed blocks have been in used for quite some time. There's many companies that don't use it. They'll just draw lines on an AutoCAD drawing and use those lines as a way to kind of wrangle and gather and collect some text information. So you'll notice here that that's the case. We've got kind of a combination of a few things where I've got just plain text and some attributed blocks. And if you're looking at the properties panel over here, you can see as I highlight the different items, it is a blend of what we've got going on. The goal here is to add a property to this title block that's intelligent enough to then be picked up by and consumed by the inventor, or the not inventor, the Vault product. So the best way to accomplish that, there's a couple ways to go about it, but the best way to go about that is by using our attributed blocks. So in this case, we're just missing an attribute for a vendor here. That's just the tag, and that, or that's just a label. It's just a piece of text there. That's not actually a tag. So I just wanted to do a brief little primer on how to do an attribute, so you can add your own intelligence. If you happen to be one of those customers that's just working in text, in lines on your title block, it's not a scary situation. I'm just going to go in and define an attribute using the command, and I'm going to give it a label. In this case, we're just going to go with a vendor. We want to be able to identify who the vendor is for an item that maybe we're purchasing. So that's exactly what I'll do here. Is I'll go ahead and I'll put in vendor information. In this case, we're going to put a label here that makes sense, right? That's going to be the attribute name itself. Notice I can also do the prompts and tagging. It's not required, so there's not a huge investment here. These attributes don't have to be incredibly detailed, just in the areas that mean the most to you. So I can leave most of the information out here and just have a container that we're going to use to store vendor information. So as is always the case, I've got an issue with fonts and text size, things of that nature. I'll go ahead and resolve that here quickly as well. Give you the tip for that. Let's see, we'll just put that right there. I'm just resting it in the corner next to the little label called vendor. I'm just going to go ahead and use a match properties command in order to make the text that's here about the right size. I'm going to just adopt that information and actually attach it to the attribute. Okay, so now I've got a label for the information in the title block, and I've also got an attribute with the information that can then house or be associated with the information, the property information here. So nothing difficult to do, and this would be a great place to start for those of you that aren't using attributes yet, to go ahead and just consider maybe adopting them, the use of them from this point forward or something like that, if it makes sense to you. Because this does allow us to take information out of these AutoCAD files and port it over into these other downstream tools, Vault and PLM included. So having done that, we now have a intelligent block here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this file. And then there's some pre-work that needs to happen on the server side as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll launch the ADMS console, which is the Autodesk Data Management Server console. And I'll show you that particular step. So here I am in the ADMS server console, asking for my permissions and credentials there. With the console open, there's a provision that we need to make so that when we hand things to the Vault, it understands the information it's being given. So I'll go to the tools, and you'll see here that there's an index block attributes. So this is a tool that allows us to let Vault know, to kind of prime Vault to watch for specific transactions. So in this case, we want it to watch for, oh wait, I didn't create a block out of that drawing yet. Let me go back to that. So this is all still arcs, lines, and circles. I just missed my step. It would have been just as empty, void of data as this is. So I'm going to create a block here. It's probably very simplistic workflows for people such as yourself that might be working in the tool every day. But the steps are required. So let's see, we'll go ahead and I'm going to create a block definition here. I'll just call it TB1. Try to keep the syntax here. There we go. All right. In this case, it doesn't really matter insertion points or anything of that nature. I just need to make this a block, and that name of that block that I'm using, that TB1, is pretty important because that's how we're going to reconcile or prepare Vault to watch for the information that's in these that are in these attributes. Okay, so I'll simply just create that. You'll see here some of the other blocks, they're properties, attributes that are in this file are, those have also come in. So we've added the vendor one, but I also was kind of aggressive and window selected around the entire title block there, and ended up with the other ones also added to our list here that are available to us, that will be housed, and the information will be stored in this drawing. I'll go ahead and select OK here, and now we can move our way back to the ADMS console. Go. And I'll use that information here. You can see that there are some blocks have already been placed and prepared for the console to monitor. I'll show you the way that we add more is just by picking the new button and TB1. It's important that the syntax match here. So I'm a big fan. I'll usually copy and paste in most cases because I don't trust my typing skills. We've just now told the system to start watching for any attributes that are being added to the Vault that are in a block called TB1. Go ahead and close that. Now we've made that provision. We have a title block with attributes in it, whether they're existing ones or ones we added, and then we've got a provision made telling the Vault to monitor or to watch for a particular group of information that's contained in a block, much like we would typically do on an AutoCAD. So there's one other thing I'm going to take a quick look at because it'll probably come up later. So in the tools here in the data management server, you saw me go to the index block attribute. So we turned that on, enabled it, and then added a block name for it to monitor or to watch for. There's also a few things that might be going on in the database. So it's depending on what we're doing, it's possible that we're likely to add information in a way that it needs to be indexed. So there are server tasks that occur when we're working in and out, or when we want to use or add information to the database. And so I just wanted you to be aware of the fact we'll see a message a little bit later, and it's going to say something about, make sure that the properties are indexed. And this is really how we would check to see if that's accomplished or not. These tasks run in the background. They don't have to be monitored. They run as needed. They'll recur as needed. And so as we add something, we'll just see a message saying it's going to be adding those properties to the index. And it might need to be re-indexed in order for those properties to appear. So just another activity here in the Autodesk Data Management Server console. I'll go ahead and close that out. I just figured I'd get kind of address that ahead of time, and I'll bring it up again later when we get a little closer. That way I can close the console. So here we are in the AutoCAD environment with the drawing we've provisioned, and we've added the vendor attribute tag. So next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the vault itself, once the server identifies and receives that information, we want it to be indexable for us so we can search on it and also port the information over to other downstream tools like PLM. So what I'll do here is I'm going to run the client for Vault. So this is the Vault Professional Client. This is how we kind of do our daily work. We work in and out of the CAD environment to get a lot of things done in the Vault, but there's also some heavy lifting and configuration things that we do using what we call the kind of the Vault client. Go ahead and again, credentials are required to log in, and you need to have administrative permissions in order to accomplish these tasks. So if you've got a Vault environment set up, you'll have to be an administrator to accomplish most of the things that I'm showing you here. Of course, the CAD tools working that I'm doing is of no consequence. So in this case, we're going to go to the configuration side of things in our Vault client. Go ahead and go to Administration, and under Vault Settings, we want to start defining information about the properties. So I'll go to the Behaviors tab and into the properties. And these are going to display, this displays the properties that the Vault either has built into it natively to interact with a lot of the CAD tools that are out there, including AutoCAD and AutoCAD Electrical and Inventor. So we take a look into the properties section here, we'll start to see a fairly significant list of existing properties that are in use by the system. And that allows us to do searching. One of the things that's not here is that property for the vendor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to provision or add that here so that it will be managed and manageable by the CAD system or by the client Vault system. So I'm going to make a property. Let's create a new property. And that property, I'm not going to be very creative here today. I'm going to use the same terminology. It just makes things easier. Follow the connectivity here. And so in this case, we're going to use this vendor. Okay, this is the property that we're going to search on. If I wanted to search for all the things in my Vault that had a vendor identifying who the vendor is, this is the way I would start that process. This information can be various. So I can either use numbers or text or Boolean true false information in this box. We'll just go with a string of text. I also want to make an association to this information so that I can really control things. From this perspective, I'm going to associate the files in my Vault that have a base category. So if you take a look at this, there's categories that are available in the Vault work group and professional. And so these categories allow us to really define or classify the types of information that are being put in our vaults. And that, again, is another way to help filter when we're looking for things. So with that information of the association listed here, I'll go ahead and just select OK. And you'll see we've created that new vendor property now, and it's waiting for us to tell it, what data it needs or should have. So in this case, I'll go ahead and just double click that vendor property, and that brings us into a mapping utility. So here's the vendor information, here's the associations to the file, and then I can come in and I can map things from the CAD document to the Vault property. So with the mapping tab active, I'll go ahead and click to add a new association or a new mapping. Notice that I have on the drop-down list here several different document types. So I can start to differentiate, I can manage Word documents this way, I can manage all kinds of CAD files this way, as well as just different document types, Outlook, etc. So in this case, that's an AutoCAD file, and we're talking about managing our AutoCAD data for PLM. I'll go ahead and just use the AutoCAD DWT file extension, DWT or DWG, so it can either be a template or an actual on-disk file. The file property we want to use is the one that we just created, which is the one called vendor. So I can get to that information and make this mapping a couple different ways. I can import the properties from an existing Vault document, or I can use in our case, maybe I want to use the document that's sitting out on my workstation right now. So I could import from a file. When I select import from a file, it just wants to know, and what we're really doing here is building a template by something that already exists. We're going to draw this information in. So we've got the property information inside here that we're looking for. And you'll notice that as I double click that, it looks through and it finds the property information that exists in those attributed blocks, including this, that's the source drawing. You can see that the contents are available. So we've got information and details about including the vendor. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go ahead and add that information in. So the file properties vendor, the provider's AutoCAD, the type is text, and it's a custom user-defined property, right? It's not one that's shipped with the software. We also have information here, which allows me to determine kind of the master of the source of this information. So I could have the properties extracted from my CAD file and put into Vault. And so that would mean that the CAD file is the source, or I could have it do the reverse of that, and I could use Vault to put property information in, and that would populate the attributes in my CAD file. So I can use Vault to populate CAD, or I can use CAD to populate Vault, or I have an option to do both, which is the bidirectional that you see here, and that'll be the option that I'm leaving available active currently. So once we've got these things set up, I'll just simply choose OK. This is that message I was talking about before I left that ADMS console. We're adding information into the database, into the SQL database, and it just wants us to know that you may have to do a reindex of that database in order for those properties to be available or usable in the Vault environment. So SQL's got to know as well as the CAD tool. Select OK. And then that gives us our property here, which means that now we can either add vendor information in the CAD file and have it show up in Vault, or I can add this vendor information into that into the field in the Vault and have it populate our title block on our CAD. So you can have the bidirectional if you do have a one source. It's always one way. I'm always going to be using the CAD file to push this information into the Vault. Then you would have chosen one of the other options that we just took a brief look at. So in this case, we're looking pretty good and pretty happy with that. I'll close this up, and that's kind of the extent of the preparation. I'll go ahead and close up our console here as well. And then I'm going to go back to our CAD file. So here we are back in AutoCAD. And I'm going to check this file into Vault. So what that means, I'll need to go to Vault here. But again, I'm going to work right from within the CAD tool, like hopefully you are already aware you can do. So I need to be logged in. Again, credentials are applied. So now that I'm logged in to the Vault, I have the ability to then check out these documents or to check them in. In this case, this document's not in the Vault. If I take a look at my X references tool palette, you'll see here that it's a brand new document, that it hasn't been vaulted, and use check-in to accomplish that task. So that's what I'll do. I'm just going to check in the CAD file. Of course, it wants to be saved before it can be checked in, so I'll do exactly that. And then I'm going to define a location where to put it in the Vault. So this is all typical Vault behavior here. It's got to know, wants to know where we're going to be putting things. And I'll just I'll create a new folder here just to make this easy. So in the designs directory, I'll create a new folder. This is our import example. I'll put it in an example folder and select OK. So we're checking the document in, committing it to Vault so that it's aware of the information that's in the CAD file. We're now informed that the document they're currently working on is vaulted, and any changes I make to this open document at this point are going to be realized in the CAD tool as well as in the Vault environment. So we're working in Vault now like you would any other place. Now, having gotten this all set up and working, I could modify this title block and modify the vendor information by putting in a value here. So once you've got this set up, it's real easy. If you're already using attributed blocks, you're really not doing anything differently. What you're really doing is leveraging that information, or making that information potentially leveraged outside the organization. So we're not even talking about extra work. Once this is configured the way you've just seen me do it, very simple, you really just start seeing the benefits right away without any additional effort. You're going to go into the properties in your attributed blocks, you're going to fill those things out. That information just falls out. You get it for free, essentially. So I'll select OK here. Now that CAD file is checked into Vault. So obviously it's going to, in order to make this, to commit this change into that attribute, of course it's going to want to check the document out to do that. So I'll go ahead and accomplish that, and we'll go ahead. Notice that the properties, it's noting that the properties of this CAD file might be out of date. So what it wants to do, if there was a change that had been made to this file in Vault, I'm now going to be made aware of it. Don't forget, we can change this document either from within Vault or from within the CAD tool. So I have this new opportunity here, but along with that, I need to have information. I need to be informed, hey, if this CAD file has been edited, the properties have been modified in the Vault environment, I would now know that. So that's why it's saying, do you want to, update the properties from Vault to make them match here. Now, there was no change made to the document in Vault, so we don't realize any change here, but it's instantly become aware of that potential, right? We could change in either place and have it update in the other. So now I've got Acme set up here, and guess what? When I go over to my Vault client, so this is where I come over and map the location, put the file in where it needs to be put in, etc. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just go to that location. I should be able to find that. So there's the CAD file that's been checked out and modified. Then I'm just simply going to check it in. I could have done that from the CAD tool as well. Oh, I've got it open in CAD actually. So I can't check this in because it's already open in CAD. So I could check it in from here. Maybe that's better, probably easier. Save the changes, check it in. Going to update the user interface here that we see. That hasn't changed. We still have Acme here, but if we come over to the Vault environment and we take a look, let's see, where did I, example. So now what we're looking at is that CAD file that has that detailed information in it that was important to us, information about the vendor. Look what's happening here in this properties panel in Vault Professional. You can see that we have several properties. Those are the other properties that kind of went along for the ride as I blocked up that title block. But now look, we've got a vendor property here that wasn't there before. This is here only because we did the work on the front end. We provisioned it both in the ADMS console and in the Vault client in order to get access to this. Now this makes it very easy for me to get information from one place to the other without worrying about either forgetting to do that, or now I've got a title block I need to update and then I need to come into Vault and add that information here too. This gets rid of all that. And when the right way is the easy way, it's a win. So in this case, if I wanted to change information about this particular drawing, I would simply just pick the property that I wanted to update or make edits to. And in this case, I can shift select a bunch of properties if I want to. There's many ways to approach this. I'm going to be very granular here and keep things simple. So I'm going to edit just the selected property. So I'm picking our vendor property. And I'm going to make a modification to that. I'm going to just call it Fabco. We've decided to change vendors, what have you. Go ahead and select OK, and then close that. So you can see I can either make the change here in the Vault, or I can make the change in the CAD file. And I can control which is which. If I don't want that bidirectional, the settings that we saw during configuration there would allow me to kind of control which is the master, where the single source of truth, let's just say, might be coming from. That is the long and the short of the property mapping that can be accomplished in order to tie AutoCAD Electrical, any of the AutoCAD-based products, to Vault and accommodate additional property information as well. This allows me to do better searching, allows me to do better communication downstream, especially to those outside of engineering. So the whole PLM thing is really around the organization getting access to the data that's important to them. And so instead of things being just tied up in engineering, on a series of server drives or in engineering in a Vault, this helps us prepare the information to be consumed in the PLM environment. I'm going to go ahead and go into the brief primer that we have on our agenda here. And I'm going to include one of our close partners at Autodesk, Brian Shannon. He does a really good job of doing a very brief description of PLM. So if you're interested in that piece of things and moving beyond outside of Vault and connecting to a PLM, he'll be able to, this brief video will help you maybe understand a little bit how things can happen downstream.
Talking about Vault, we have a solution for Vault and then working with PLM systems. So we have a product called Autodesk Vault PLM, and this bridges together the PDM technology that we have inside of Vault with cloud PLM. And Fusion Lifecycle Cloud PLM is actually a complete cloud product. So this is something you don't need an install for. You don't need any desktop connection. It's something that runs inside of Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. What this allows you to do is bridge together PDM tools like document change management, CAD integration, and all the wonders of Vault Professional with cloud enterprise, bill of material, customizable workflows, project management, quality management, etc. What this allows you to do is bring these two systems together inside of one. And by bringing these two systems together, we're basically going to bridge all of the work that we have inside of Vault, all of that CAD knowledge, and bridge it together with Fusion Lifecycle to solve the solutions that we have inside of our cloud PLM. This takes the data, the process, customizable workflows, tasks, and project management, and adds in the design data to give you one complete fluid solution. As mentioned, Fusion Lifecycle is completely online, so it's something that wakes up inside of a browser. It comes actually with some predefined templates for processes in supplier management, new product introduction, quality management, bill of materials, et cetera, and it's very scalable. We have an app store that allows you to download and install additional processes inside. And as I mentioned, there's no install. It's something that you can take advantage right away.
Again, this isn't a technology, this PLM technology is something that is designed to help us get your data safely, easily, and in a controlled way out of your siloed CAD environment, the Vault environment where engineering works, and to your vendors, to your customers, to your field service people, really allowing us to get people the information they need, that they need, when they need it, and not have a broken process going to PDF files all the time, or having to ship paper via FedEx from location to location. Hopefully you found this presentation helpful, from the details with the configuration beyond and into just a brief primer on PLM itself and why you might want to take advantage of it, or at least entertain taking advantage of it for your organization.